Welcome to our February Cloud Leadership Circle meetup. First, today we have Mike Estes, and he's going to chat about leadership.
So for those who haven't met me, I'm Mike Estes. I am building out an advisory practice, Estes Advisory. Very, very happy to be a part of this community, and just want to start off by saying thank you to Megan, thank you to Sean and other folks who've just been involved in building out this community. I'm just honored to be here and challenged to be talking to a bunch of cloud leaders about leadership. So as all things, this is a perspective. I think we all have different perspectives, but that's a great, aspect about being a part of a community like this, is that we have the opportunity to learn from each other. So I'm going to just dive right in. There we go. All right. So what I'm talking about here is leading tech teams effectively, right? And we've all had to do this, and it can be challenging, right? Tech teams are full of brilliant people. They bring so much to the table. With all of those great aspects comes a lot of chaos. And so I think a big aspect of this is finding some beauty in the chaos and finding ways to adapt to that chaos and dive in. So, the way I wanted to talk about this is just kind of talking about things that I've learned from my personal perspectives about being in the field, and just kind of approaching these technical, brilliant people. And how do you build trust? How do you get the results that you need? How do you just lead these folks when you're definitely not the smartest person in the room, right? Okay, so next slide. So why does it matter? What makes a tech leader truly effective? And like I just said, it's not about being the smartest person in the room. I definitely never want to be the smartest person in the room with the teams. I think the greatest value I've ever personally found is just learning from the people that I am blessed with the opportunity to work with and manage and really just support, right? I think a key factor here is that, in this world, it's very competitive with pay, and that's a huge factor, right? But a lot of people make their decisions about whether to stay or leave based on what their experience is like with their leadership team, both their immediate manager and how that manager works with other aspects of management, other tier teams, and things like that. I'm sure you're all very aware of that. So my perspective is that leadership's really just about adaptability, being able to, kind of observe the landscape, see where you're at, and take a MacGyver approach. And I may be dating myself with that reference. I don't know if a lot of people remember MacGyver, but I feel like that's been my life in tech for the past 27 years now. To further age myself. So, that's why I think it matters. I think it's truly, truly important to take that approach of just being adaptable on many levels, both with the projects that you're trying to execute on and with the team members that you have who just bring so much varied experience to the table, have their strengths and their soon to be strengths. Let's put it that way. And that's one of the tasks that, as a leader, I've been honored to be able to do, is just to try to help people that are a part of the team really thrive. And sometimes that's taking them directions that are not where they necessarily wanted to go, but where they actually can thrive the most in, right? So that's a long way of saying all these things on the slide. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one.
Cloud Leadership Circle is brought to you by InstaQuery, the AI-powered SQL optimization platform that delivers smarter queries and faster insights. With over 50 specialized agents, InstaQuery dynamically tailors LLM-powered prompts to rewrite and optimize SQL queries with 100% accuracy. Boost productivity by 500% and transform the way your data team works. Book a demo today at instaquery.ai to see it in action.
So, to continue that, it's like leadership is not a one size fits all, right? Every leader is different. You're managing different teams, especially if you have multiple teams, which I've been in that situation where you have different teams doing different things. Each team has its own dynamics, how they interact with other teams in the organization. So there's no secret sauce that we can apply uniformly and say, this is how you lead a team. I've definitely heard people take that position, and I'm kind of allergic to it. So I just look at it like, hey, you want to plan, you want to have some ideas, some framework to bring to the table, but let's not be rigid, right? Be flexible. I particularly in my life have just been a very instinct driven leader. right? I've just needed to be. It's like I can tell a lot about the individuals on my team when I first meet them, and I try to play on that. So, to that next point, it's like jazz, right? You're just constantly riffing. You're not following the sheet music. You're improvising based on what's happening, and you have to do it in real time, which is extremely challenging, but extremely rewarding when you're able to accomplish it. So, the takeaway here is just what I think great leadership is adapting to the situation, the people, and the goal. And as we all know in technology, those goals are not like fixed and rigid in time, right? They're constantly moving. The business is pivoting. You're doing all these things. So that adaptability, I think, is really key. So I think that covers this part well, and we'll kind of get into more of the details. So this is where I get a little funny and awkward, because I'm talking about something that probably a lot of people have heard about, maybe some haven't, but it's the OODA loop. And it comes from for folks that are like familiar with military stuff, it's a military process that a lot of folks will take. And I think it's adaptable to life in general, but I've really enjoyed adapting it to leadership specifically, right? So the OODA loop is observe, orient, decide, act, and repeat. And you're just continuously going through this process of doing that formula over and over and over again. And to do that effectively means like being able to have a lot of humility, as much objectivity, getting feedback from a lot of different people, peers, people on your team, and just iterating constantly and making those high-speed decisions high speed in real time, like I mentioned. And I think it really has a lot of value. It gives you these rapid, informed decisions, like mentioned here, in environments that are constantly changing around you. So many things that you cannot control, right? So you have to just be kind of focused on what you can control. And I'll just reference back to that MacGyver approach. It's like you have to be effective using these tools that are around you, and they're not always the most ideal tools. So, think on your feet, adapt, pick up the pieces, and keep going. So takeaway here is that if you adapt fast, you lead the best. You just got to move, keep moving, right? And with that, let's move on to the next slide. So, hey, it's good to talk about theory. I think it's good to get into like real world stuff a little bit. I'm just going to say I worked at an organization, I'm not going to call them out by name, but boy, did I inherit what literally is on here as a dumpster fire. One of my peers that worked there wrote up a whole summary of it. It was like, this is an actual dumpster fire. And I got thrown into it. To say it was chaotic is the understatement of the century. I just couldn't believe it. I don't want to get too far in the details. It's something I would love to talk more about if anyone is interested, because I think it's a real good case study in real life. So we'll talk about this more later, but definitely encourage you to engage with me on LinkedIn. I would just love to dive into the details. But one of the peers that I just really enjoyed working with at the company, who was involved in helping hire me and interview me, is this gentleman named Mike Sample. And he has a whole write-up on this that is hilarious that you can see on my LinkedIn profile. But that testimonial gave it's just key. I have never observed a more perilous situation than the one Mike Estes was hired to navigate. Like, it was chaotic, and we had to basically throw out a framework that had been built for a year and a half, a whole full tech stack that wasn't working, wasn't going to meet the goal, start all over with a brand new team that included the most junior folks, the most green folks that you could imagine. And somehow we made it work, and we hit our deadline, and we were launching our product, and we had partners that were dependent on it. And I cannot take credit for that, except to say that I did what I felt like I needed to do as a leader, which was to enable that team. Inside, was I panicking? Of course I was. There was a lot of inner panic going on there, but hey, I couldn't let that panic spread to the team, right? So I think one of the big takeaways I took from that is just coming to the table and being as calm as possible, but being real, being authentic, hearing the members of the team like freaking out at 7 p.m., after working since 7 a.m. and like, is this going to work? And, and just being able to take the time, like, I don't want to get too far off track here. I know I'm being mindful of time, but it's like, sometimes you need to slow down to speed up. And that was a big factor there. So, it was a definitely being tested in crisis opportunity. and we succeeded, and it was really awesome. So I'd love to talk more about that with the group at another time. All right, moving on. I'll try to go faster. So, hey, the philosophy here is servant leadership, being a player coach, right? Not being detached from your team. You're in the middle, you're in the trenches. You got to remove the obstacles. I love to give direction, but you got to let the team shape it so that they have ownership in it. They believe in it. They want it to get into there. You know, one of the testimonials I'm referencing here is from a team member who really called that out. It says, you know, Mike recognized the true benefit and potential people, does everything to remove obstacles path. I think that's what servant leadership is. I think that's what player coach mentality is it's not about dictating, it's about enabling and removing obstacles. So it's empowering them. It's not micromanaging them. So another little case study is I worked at Snowflake. It was both the most awesome and most difficult job that I've ever had in my life. I got put into a space that I did not know anything about, and I had to control two teams or manage two teams and control a chaotic situation for areas that I had no background experience in. I had a lot of other tech experience, but these particular teams, I was like, well, okay. So I had to learn from the team. So, you know, I had to build that trust, and I had to be honest. And I had to not try to be the smartest person in the room, even though there was a lot of pressure to do that. The testimonial here speaks a lot of volumes to me. This person's very important to me. He said, hey, we hired Mike after a long search. What impressed me was his honesty when facing difficult questions. And I really think that's a huge takeaway, is just being honest and showing some humanity with your team. And being real and being able to just keep moving on, and learned a lot about them. So, you know, it's not about knowing all the answers. It's about navigating those unknowns with as much clarity as you can and just driving forward, not giving up. So the key takeaways here: adaptability instincts. They're better than fixed rules. You know, do that OODA loop. Do it all the time. Build trust, psychological safety, meaning to me, let your team feel that they can go and they can vent with you. They can say anything to you. They have that outlet. They won't do it with other people. You avoid a lot of the destructive toxicity that I think we've all seen in tech environments. Let's be real, right? Being calm, moving on, executing with clarity, having the strategy, the resilience, and just really, for me, it's always been prioritizing people, right? Being very collaborative and people-centric has done a lot for me, rather than treating them like assets, treating them like people who bring a lot to the table. So, in closing, it's not about personal success. It's about creating teams, cultures, and solutions that endure. And I feel very honored to have been able to be put through so many tests to be able to say they can do that. Going back to one of my favorite guys here, Mike Sample, I could only be envious of any team that may have the good fortune to work with Mike. And honestly, I feel likewise about him. And I do with so many of my colleagues that I've worked with in life. And I think that's what it's really about. The technology problems that we're facing and the solutions that we're doing, they're always going to change as we move through the field. Those connections with the team, those are life lasting. And as leaders, we want to make an impact, not only on the teams we lead, but the peers that we work with. So I would encourage everyone here, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to talk, obviously, and would love to keep this conversation going. And I really appreciate your time.